we'll start our initial assembly of the components that we have completed. And so I'm going to start a new assembly file. And you may need to browse to the location where your parts are stored in the folder. And I'm going to select the base solid part first. And I'll select open. And I want to place this at the origin, so don't click on the screen. Don't click on the screen. Click on this check mark, and that will put it at the origin automatically. Okay, now you might have gone past that step accidentally. If you did, the next step is going to be what we'll use again and again. So let's go ahead and save this though, and I'm going to call this punch assembly. And then I'm going to select insert component. Now this might be underneath this area, under this arrow. So we're going to do a insert component that we've already created. And then I'm going to go to the folder where I have the parts, and I'm going to select the column next. So I'll select column, and this time I'm going to just click someplace on the screen, say about like that. Right, then we know in the real world that the bottom of this face goes to this top face here on our base. And so I need to mate those two faces together. And so I'll come up here and I'll select this tool for mate. And I'll select the top face of the base, and I'll select the bottom face of the column. And now those two faces are put together. I'll select OK here, or you can select the OK here, either place. Alright, now if I exit out of that mate command, if I drag this though, it still moves around. We need to put a mate in here as though we put the fasteners in here. So I'm going to do another mate, and I'm going to select this hole right here, and be sure to get the cylindrical face of the hole, not a circle, not that circle, not that circle, but I'll select this cylindrical face of the hole, and then I'll select the cylindrical face of the mating part that should go to. And I accidentally have the wrong face on that column selected, so I'm going to click here on that, and I'll delete that selection and then select that cylindrical face. And I see that it put them actually tangent instead of concentric, so watch out for that. So make sure we have those two cylindrical faces concentric. So now that moves that over concentric instead of tangent. I'll accept that, and let's close out and test this out. It's a good idea, particularly as a beginner, to test out each constraint as you go to make sure you get the correct behavior. So if I drag this, if we imagine if we put one fastener in here, we would still be able to drag this until we put at least one more fastener in here. So I'm going to put a fastener in here and here. So I'll do mate, and I don't have any selections yet, so I've cleared that, and I'm going to select the cylinder on this hole and the cylindrical face on this hole, and it moves those together, and I'll accept that. And now if I exit out of here and I try to drag this, we see that it doesn't move. I'm going to turn off these weld symbols. So let me open up that part. So I'm going to right click and open up the column. And actually they're not displayed. Yes, it is displayed here. Let's go to the annotations here, and I'm going to try to find that. I don't see, I need to turn that off. Well, we'll ignore that for now. Okay, and then in those holes we have a fastener in each hole, and that is the M8 Hex Head fastener. And so I will do insert, or I'll do the insert again, and I'll get the M8 Hex Head, and I'll put the bolt about right there. Then I need to mate the clamping face of this bolt to the clamping face on this column. And so I will do mate, and I'll select the clamping face of the bolt to the clamping face of the column. And so it moves that around. I'll accept that. Now it might put this where you can't get hold of it, so I'm going to just go ahead and exit out of this so I can get hold of it, and I'm going to drag it out here where I can see it better. And in some cases it might be buried in there where you can't see it at all. In that case, you could right click, for example, on the column, and you could click hide that component, and then when you get it this part out, you can right click and unhide that component. Then I'm going to do mate, and I'm going to select the cylindrical face of this fastener, and I'll select the cylindrical face of the hole where it goes. Okay, so we've got that one in. I'll say OK to that. I'll save often. Right now I know that I'm going to do this 3 more times, so I'm going to control drag another copy of that bolt out here. And notice that there's a minus symbol on here. That indicates that it's not fully constrained. If I try to drag this, I see that I can still rotate it. But in the real world, we would be able to rotate that until we tightened it down real tight. So we'll just leave that, allow it to still rotate like that. Alright, then we'll do constraint again. So I'll do mate, and I'm going to select the top face here, and then the bottom clamping face of the bolt. I need to get this face right here. I'll accept that. And then I need the cylindrical face of the bolt to this cylindrical face of the hole. It moves that over into position. I'll accept that, and I'll say OK to that. And then I can get 2 more bolts for the other side over here. And so I'll control, click and drag, or we could come up here and we could do insert component again. But it's just easier to control drag another copy like that. And we can do these in the opposite order. It just might make sense to do the face to face first. So I'll try to do it in the opposite order. So this time I'm going to select the cylindrical face first, and then I'll select this cylinder on the hole, and I'll say apply to that. And then I'll get the cylindrical face on this one and the cylindrical face on the hole, and I'll say apply to that. And then I'll click the top face here and the clamping face on that fastener. I'll say apply to that, and then the clamping face on the fastener and the top face here. So this is just like the real world on how you go to assemble parts together. Alright, now I didn't do the table in SolidWorks, but I did it in Inventor. So we'll have to open up the Inventor file. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to set my file types to either Inventor files or all files. And I'm going to find the table. So this was an Inventor file. I'll open that. It'll take it a couple seconds to open it. When it opens it, it asks if we want to get the mass properties from the part. I'm just going to uncheck this, and I'll select body. So it imports the table. And so here we see the table, and when it says do you want to run import diagnostics, whenever we're importing a part we should probably say yes to run the import diagnostics. I'll say yes, and it found some problems with some of our faces, and so I'm going to tell it to attempt to heal all, and now it says everything is okay. I'll go ahead and accept that. And so there we see our part. I see that our hole appears as sort of a polygon, so I want to increase the resolution of that. And so remember how we do that. If we go to options, and we'll go to document properties, and we'll go to image quality, and I'm going to drag this up just underneath the red, about like that. Okay, now you might want to apply some paint to this, to maybe a painted face here and on these cylindrical faces. I'm going to leave it the way it is. We need to save this now as a SolidWorks file. So we opened up, translated an Inventor file. We now need to save that as a SolidWorks file. I'm going to capitalize that T in table. And then we can close that file, and I can do insert component, and this time I will get the table. Now if you already have the files open, they would actually appear in a list over here, so if I hadn't closed that, it would be in this list and I could just accept it from that list. And I'll just click anywhere on the screen for this one. Again, we want this face to the bottom of the table, so I'll do mate, and I'm going to select that face and that face to make those two faces, and I'll say OK to that. And then I want to make that hole to the hole, and I could do it from underneath here, but maybe I'll just exit out of this, and I'll drag this over here so I can see that clearly. And then I'll do mate, get the cylindrical face, not the circle, get the cylindrical face, and get this cylindrical face. Now you could use the circle, but I want to do this in the most robust way possible. Right now, if we try to drag this, we see that this part can still rotate, which is what we expect. I'll then do insert, and I'm going to get the table post, and I'll click someplace on the screen. Now on this one, I don't want this clamping face, I don't want that tight against this face, because then we wouldn't be able to rotate this thing. So what I really want is this face right here. I want that to the top of the base. So I'm going to temporarily turn off the visibility of the table. So I'll come over, I'll right click on the table, and I'll do hide table. And then I'm going to mate this, and so this is called a shoulder bolt. And so I'm going to do mate, and I'm going to mate this face right here to this face right here. I'll apply that, and then I'll mate the cylindrical face to the cylindrical face. It moves it over into position, and I'll say OK to that. And then I'll turn the table back on. So I'll go back to the table, I'll right click, and I'll do show component to show the table so it's back on. Let's see if I can show that clearance with the section view. So I'm going to go to the front view, and I'll come up here and I'll select section view, and I'll accept that. And if I zoom in here, so you see that there's a little bit of clearance between the bottom face of the fastener and this face in the counter board, and that allows us to spin this so that it can still rotate. So I'll click here on section view to leave that, and you should consider clearances like that as you are designing your parts. Don't assume that that will be taken care of later on. You know, we need to be able to spin this part, so if we had that bolt where it could go down tight against there, it wouldn't be able to spin. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is put the bushing in here, and so I'm going to do insert again, insert component, and I will get the punch bushing, and I'll click someplace on the screen here, and then I will do constraint, and I'm going to constrain this cylinder with this cylinder. We could select it up here, or we could select it down here. Now notice that it put it in the wrong directions, so I need to flip that direction. So I can either flip it over here, the alignment, or I can flip the alignment over here. So I'll tell it to flip that mate alignment, and so now it's in the right direction. I'll say OK to that. I'm going to exit out of this. I'm going to drag this up so I can see the bottom of that, and so I'll do mate again. I'll select the bottom of this counter bore, and notice that's looking like a polygon too, so we need to change that display setting in the assembly as well as the part. And so I'm going to select the bottom face where that would press down against the bottom of the counter bore. Okay. And let's increase that resolution in the assembly. So again, we'll go to options, we'll go to document properties and image quality, and let's drag this up for the assembly as well. Now our assembly is real small, so it's not going to significantly slow down by increasing that resolution. Okay, now it looks like a circle. Next, I'm going to place this punch pin number 7 that goes into that bushing. So I'm going to do insert component, and I will get the punch pin, and I'll click someplace on the screen. Now last time we had to flip the alignment on this bushing. We could rotate this around and line it up by eye before we put the constraints in. Underneath move component, if I do rotate component, I can select on this component and then rotate it around. So this isn't really necessary, but in some cases it might help in assembling your components to first line them up. And so then I'll do mate, and I'll select this cylinder, and I'll select this cylinder, and I'll say OK to that. Now exit out, test it out, make sure that this moves as we would expect it to, so it can translate up and down or move in a straight line. It can also rotate around its axis. Then I'll put in the index rod, and so I'll do insert component. I will get the index rod, and then I will mate the axis of this index rod to the axis of this hole. I'll say OK to that, and I test it out, so this part translates back and forth. Now right now these parts are going right through each other. We'll look at how to handle that in our next lab. I've done a few things right. I should save it. Okay, the next thing I want to do is put the M18 screws that go in these corners, and so I'll do insert component, and we did the M18 as an Inventor file, and so we need to open it first to save it as a SolidWorks file. So I'll cancel out of this, and I'll come up and I'll do open. I will get the M18 machine screw Inventor IPT file. Again, I'm going to turn off this get mask properties, but I'll select body. It will open up the file, and we can see that the file doesn't look correct, and so I'm going to tell it yes to run the import diagnostics, and we see that it found some faulty faces. I'll tell it to attempt to heal all. Now I'll be surprised if this one is able to heal it. Well, it looks like it was able to heal the part, and so we'll go ahead and accept that. Now it might ask you if you want to then run feature recognition, If it asks you to run feature recognition, tell it no. I'll save this file, and I'm going to call that the M18 machine screw. And then I will go back to my assembly, and I'll do insert component. I'll get that M18 SolidWorks file, and I'll click someplace on the screen, and then I'll do mate. I'll select the cylindrical face on this fastener to the cylindrical face, and I need to flip that direction the other way, so I'll do flip mate alignment. I'll say OK to that, and then the top of this base part to the bottom face of the fastener, I'll say OK to that, and then I need to bring that in 3 more times, so I'll hold down the control key. I'll bring that in once, and I think I can get 2 of these at the same time, maybe not. Well, I've got them in there. There's one, there's one, and there's one. There's a 4th one. Oh, that's already put in there. So I was able to bring in multiple at once. So I'll do mate, and I'll get this cylindrical face of. I see that I had a face on this one already selected, so I'm going to delete that selection. So now I just have that cylindrical face selected, and this face. And for some reason it's not allowing me to select it, so I'm going to clear these selections. So I right click to clear those selections. I'll select this cylindrical face, and I'll select cylindrical face on one of these fasteners, and it's not letting me get it again, so I'm going to exit out of there and just start over. I don't know what I did there, so I'll do make sure nothing's highlighted. See, if I have something highlighted, it's going to automatically select that when I do the constraint. So I'm going to click on the screen to let go of that face, and then I'll do mate, so I have nothing pre-selected, and I'll select this cylindrical face, and I'll select that face. It moves that over into position. I'll accept that. Then I'll select this cylindrical face, and I'll select this cylindrical face. It moves that one over. I'll accept that. And then this cylindrical face, and the last hole over here, and I'll accept that. And then we can get the top of this and the bottom of that. I'll accept that, and the top of this face and the bottom of the clamping face. I'll accept that. Now on this part, it's buried down inside there where I can't see it, but I can just click and drag this up, and so now I can get to that clamping face. So I'll make this face to the clamping face on the fastener. Okay, so those are the parts that we've created so far. We will continue to create the rest of the parts and assemble them as they go. I want to turn off this the labels for the weld. So let's go to the or open up this part. So I'll go to the column and I'll do open. And actually, let's see if we can do it here first. So let's expand annotations, and so I don't see it at the assembly level, but if I open up the column and I expand annotations, and actually I missed a step previously, so I'm going to right click on annotations and I'm going to uncheck display annotations, and we'll see that those will disappear. Okay, so let's save this and let's go back to the assembly. I want to see if that was here as well. So yeah, I could have done it here at the assembly as well, I believe. Okay, so I needed to right click on annotations. I was expecting that to show up in a list here, but you have to right click to get to that. Alright, so let's save this, and then we'll see how to do the same assembly up to this step in Inventor, and then we will model this handle, and we'll model the springs, we'll model this knob, and so we'll start to make the rest of the parts so that we can finish our assembly. Let's do the same set of operations in Autodesk Inventor. So the first thing I'll do is make sure that my project file is set up to my punch press location, and then I'll start a new assembly. And so I'll select new, I'm going to go to metric, standard millimeter, and I'll create that assembly. And I accidentally selected part rather than assembly, so let's go back. I'll say new again, make sure that I'm not doing the IPT file but standard IAM Inventor assembly. And then just like we did in SolidWorks, we'll select place component. Now that could be, this button could be buried underneath here. Just find the place component. If it's buried, expand this. And I'm going to put in the base first, so I'll select the base and I'll say open. And again, don't click on the screen. Remember in SolidWorks we clicked a green check mark up here to place it at the origin. Inventor's similar, but right click, tell it place grounded at origin. And so that puts it at the origin. I'll hit escape to get out of the command. Now notice it's showing the bottom, and I really would like for it to show it about like this from the top. So I'm rotate it around and then right click on this corner and set that current view as the home position. I'll do a fixed distance. So now whenever I click on home, it's going to return to that home position right there. And I'll save this as punch assembly. And I see that at some point I didn't get the holes put into this base. Hopefully you got your holes put in, so I need to quickly do that, and then I'll come back and we'll continue on. Let's assume though that you had not done this base in Inventor, but you did it in SolidWorks. So I'm going to do open, and I'll set my file type to all files or SolidWorks. I'm going to set it to all files so I can also see the Inventor files. And I'm going to select this Inventor base, the SolidWorks base. And it comes up and asks me for some questions. We can just say OK. And so there is the base that I did in SolidWorks. It's now in Inventor. And remember when we did in SolidWorks, we ran a quality check. We can do the same thing in Inventor. So here on this node, if I right click and I'll select repair bodies, and then I'll tell it to find any errors, and I'll tell it to select the entire body. I'll say OK. And if it doesn't give you a green check mark, it'll give you some options on repairing. Everything's OK, so I'll click on finish repair. And let me save this assembly. And then the next thing we did is we pulled in the column. And again, if you didn't, or actually this is still the part file, so I'm going to close this, and I need to go back to my assembly. I guess I closed my assembly, so I'll say new, and I'll do assembly. And then I'll do place. And I don't know if I overwrote the original. I'll right click, place grounded at origin. Okay, and then again I want to move this so that this is oriented about like that, so I'll click on this corner, I'll right click, and I'll say set that current position as fixed distance at home. So I had to redo a little bit of that work to get the part that I had done in SolidWorks. And then the next thing we did was column. Now I didn't create the column in Inventor myself. You may have created it in Inventor, in which case you can just put it in here. I'm going to have to do open, and I will get the column from SolidWorks. I'll say OK on these import options, and if we want to run a quality check on this, we'd have to run a quality check on each one of these in our multi-body component, and I'm just going to assume that everything's OK here. Now I need to save this, so we're converting this from a SolidWorks file into an Inventor file. So I need to save it, and then I can close the part file. I'm back to my assembly. I'll do place, and I'll get the Inventor column, and then I'll just click anywhere on the screen like we did in SolidWorks and hit escape to get out of that command. Now in SolidWorks, the next step we did is we mated this face to this face right here. And so I'm going to click on Constraint. In SolidWorks, they call it Mate. Once we click on Constraint, we'll see that the option here is Mate in Inventor as well. And so I have it on this option for Mate. That's the default. I'll select this face, and I'll select this face. That mates those two together. So I'll say OK to that. And if I try dragging this around, those two faces stay together, but I need to line up the holes. So then I'll do Constraint again. I will select the cylindrical face of this hole, and I'll select the cylindrical face on this hole. I'll say OK to that. And then when we drag this around, we see, just like in SolidWorks, we need to do one more constraint. Now there is a faster way of doing this, which I will show you later on, but for now we'll do it like this. I'll do Constraint. I will select the cylindrical face of this hole and the cylindrical face of this hole. It moves that over into position. Now if I tried to move that, it doesn't move. We'll put our table in here next, and so I need to check and see if we have the table in this one. And so here is the table, and I'll click someplace on the screen, and let me show you the little faster way of doing this. So in SolidWorks we did this face to this face, then the hole to the hole. Let me show you a faster way. So I'll do Constraint. I'm going to select this one for Insert, and I'm going to select this hole right here. Make sure you get the circle this time on the top of the hole, and then the circle on the bottom of the table. We'll say OK to that. And so then we test this, and we see that we can drag this, and it rotates. Okay, so we've done this already once in SolidWorks, so I'm going to probably speed up here a little bit. I didn't put the M8 screws in here, so let's go ahead and do place. And I don't see the M8, so I would need to open those up. Now I'm only going to do part of this, and I think you get the idea now. So I'll go to Open, and I'll get the M8 Hex Head bolt from SolidWorks, and I need to convert it, so I'll say OK to convert it. Now it didn't put the thread on here. Remember, that was a cosmetic thread, but we can put that on later. So I'll save that, and I'll now that I've saved that as an Inventor file, I can do Place, and now we see the M8 Hex Head bolt. And I'm going to click here. Now we can click 4 times in Inventor to place that the 4 times. And so let's do that insert constraint again. So I'll do Constraint. Instead of doing the mated to cylinder, cylinder, face to face, we'll put it on this insert. And I'll select the bottom of the clamping face, this circle right here, to this circle right there. I'll apply that. Then I'll get the next one, this circle to this circle, apply that, and then this circle to this circle, I'll apply that, and then this circle. So that's the insert constraint in Inventor. Okay, I need to put the table post in here, and so I don't remember if we created the table post in Inventor. I don't see it here, so you would first have to open it, save it as an Inventor file, and then put it in here. I'm going to skip over that because I think you understand those steps now. I'm going to put the bushing in here, so I'll do place, and I'll get the punch bushing. I'll open that, I'll click on the screen, and using that insert trick, so we'll do constrain, I'll do insert, and I'll select the circle on the bottom of the clamping face here, and this circle here. I'll say OK to that. I will bring in the punch pin, and let me go ahead and save this. And so I need to save that. And actually, why did it? I made a mistake in there somewhere, so it's asking me to save it off to get a new name, revision 1. And then I'll do place, and I'll get the punch pin, and I'll place that, and then I'll do constrain, and I'm going to select the axis of this punch pin and the axis of this hole. Make sure you get the hole and not the circle. The circle would get the center point of the circle. We want the axis, and it put it in upside down, so I need to flip that direction just like we did in SolidWorks. I'll click aligned, and that flips it the other way. I'll say OK to that. I drag it up and down, and we see that that's OK. We need to do the index rod, so I'll do place. I will get the index rod, and I'll do constrain. I'll select the axis of the index rod, the axis of this hole. I'll say OK to that. Test it out, so this should translate back and forth, and I will get the 4 M18, so I'll do place, and I'll select the M18, and I'll put those 4 M18s in, and then I'll leave that for you to get those inserted or constrained in place. Then we'll continue on and create the handles, the knob that goes back here, and the components that go into the table.